Hello there, my name is Terry, and welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. Today I'm chatting with someone who's developed a very unique style of animation, and that is Jonni Phillips. In fact, she lives and breathes animation and has become quite accomplished at a young age already. For instance, right after graduating high school, she went on to develop an original pilot with Frederator Studios called Rachel and her grandfather control the island, and you can go watch that on Cartoon Hangover right now. She's also known for Stilton's In Charge and her feature-length anthology series, Wasteland, which includes such film pieces like The Earth is Flat, Goodbye Forever Party, and the final exit of the Disciples of Ascensia. And on top of all this, she just graduated from CalArts' experimental animation program. Now, before we get into today's chat, I also have a sponsored message to share with you. It comes from my friends over at Bloop Animation, which is an animation learning platform packed with premium online video courses for aspiring animation filmmakers. They have courses for all major animation programs like Maya, Animate CC, Toon Boom, Blender, TVPaint, and many others, as well as some non-software courses like a storyboarding course, animation foundations course, and even one about making graphic novels, which covers absolutely everything you need to know from start to finish. And their courses are all in video form, so there's no deadlines or application process. Simply just pick a course and start learning in seconds. They even offer a free ebook titled Making an Animated Short, which covers their entire process, step by step, of how they made one of their films, from coming up with the idea, to storyboarding, animating, and all the way to exporting the film. And you can get that book for free at bloopanimation.com/animationindustry. And you can check out their complete course library at bloopanimation.com/courses. And I'll include both those links in the description of this podcast, so please check that out. Now, back to today's episode. So I've been following Jonni's work ever since I randomly stumbled across her on Instagram, and it immediately stuck out to me because I had never seen anything like it before, and I still haven't seen anything like it yet. So what she's done is created this wonderful mixed media between 2D and stop motion. So first, she animates everything in 2D animation and then takes each frame and cuts it out of the paper in different layers and then watercolors to get a color on there, and then refilms everything in stop motion on different planes of glass, which creates this very genuine, authentic, reach out and feel it type of animation that I just haven't seen before. But besides her unique style, her storytelling is also a bit different than the classic hero story you often see in animation. So instead, she tells these very endearing stories about what makes us emotional beings, which is really refreshing to see in a way. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jonni Phillips. Hi, Jonni. Thanks for being on the podcast. How are you doing? Hello.
Sorry. Wait, okay. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just
Good.
I'm just all sleepy and whatever, you know?
Yeah, I feel you. Well, there's a time difference between where we live, so that's understandable.
It's 10 a.m. It's like 11 a.m. here.
Okay, it's not understandable anymore because you should be up.
Yeah, I should be up.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I'm happy to chat with you.
Thank you.
Sweet. So I have a lot of things that I want to talk about, but the first one is just kind of, what is that dream you're following that, has pushed you to create the things that you've created?
I think I just really want to make my own movies, and I really want to, I just want to make my own movies, and I want to make stuff the way I want to make it. I want to prove myself. I don't know. I think I want to eventually, just be making my own movies as my full-time job, I guess. That's what I would like to.
So you've already made some movies, but you want to fully self-sustain yourself by making movies?
Yeah. That's the hope at some point.
So so your movies that you've made have a very unique voice. What is that thing that you're trying to put out there that you think is different than what's already out there?
Well, I think so I feel like generally most of everything I've made so far has been really I guess rebellious in a way. So I've been mostly making stuff that's essentially the polar opposite of what people expect in animation, or what, at least the polar opposite of what is expected of a professional person. So
Well, I want to talk about that later, but maybe we should get into it now because before you told me that you're trying to like reach a state of filmmaking that you developed when you were younger, with like shittier materials like webcam and like
Yeah.
paper cutouts and stuff. Because so you have CalArts training, which is arguably one of the best animation schools in the world. Yeah,
Arguably, yeah.
arguably. Well, yeah. And like you've worked with some big studios on stuff, like you've developed like really professional stuff, but
Yeah.
tell me about why you're trying to go the opposite of that.
I think it's well, first of all, it's kind of like I'm sick of everything. I'm sick of I'm sick of the way things are done, and I'm sick of kind of like the pretension. And this is kind of how I've always been. I've always been very like I've never really understood like pretension in how like sorry, I'm trying to formulate what I'm thinking. But like, I'm generally like not interested in following rules, and I feel like I like especially in animation where I feel like a lot of like the rules are arbitrary and don't make a lot of sense to me. I've just kind of decided to do things the way that I want to do them and do things the way that's like the fastest and like the way that's the most interesting to me. Because one, it's like fun for me to do that, and then two, it's like I think it makes a point about like how meaningless a lot of our rules are that are set up. Because like I guess for me as someone who's been studying animation for like a super long time, um, I like and I've been doing things that are against the grain for a long time. Also, it's like even like the pilot that I made at Frederator Studios was like very meant to stand out and like do things differently as far as like the construction of it and like how it was animated and everything. Primarily just because like I think that a lot of the rules are made for a specific kind of person, made for like someone like okay, so like Richard Williams is like like the Animator survival kit as like a base example, I guess. Like I think like I'm sure you've experienced this in like animation education, right? Where it's like kind of held as like a very prime like a standard of like what's acceptable as far
Yeah,
as like
sure.
yeah.
The
So
like the principles and physics of how to create, I guess, pleasing to the eye,
mhm.
like really realistic kind of
Yeah.
animation in a sense, right?
Yeah, and then like there's another aspect of it too where like I guess like Pixarian storytelling is really held to a standard as well. At least like in my experience, which has been like very California based, very like CalArts whatever. Like I think a lot of my experience with like what's acceptable in storytelling and what's acceptable in visuals and everything, it's always like very formulaic, and it's always very I think personally arbitrary, and it doesn't like allow for room for like different voices. And for me as someone who's like transgender and like and like and neurodivergent and everything, it kind of becomes this thing for me where I'm like the way that the way that things are set up, at least as far as like what's acceptable and everything, kind of to me feels like it's for a specific kind of person and how a specific kind of mind works. So for me, I'm like looking for what works for me the most, what's like the thing that makes sense to me, how can I like express myself in a way that feels correct to me, because like I think also there's another like I like for me I'm not interested in achieving like realism or achieving like any kind of sense of reality in my work, I guess, as far as like a tangible one goes. But I'm very interested in achieving like an emotional reality, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
a lot of my choices are meant to um, communicate like an emotional reality rather than a literal one or a logical one. So
Yeah, well,
yeah.
that really comes through in some of your work. Like, for instance, Ascensia is like very emotionally driven the entire time, and
Hmm.
it's like I sat through it and I wanted to cry at the end. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like your typical, hero story where at the end they overcome the climax and blah blah blah. And but you said something interesting. Then I've kind of felt that too. Like growing up on like Disney, where you have like the Disney princess and the classic like
Hmm.
story, everything is made for like a mainstream audience, and the formula was developed because it worked.
Hmm.
It's sold to audiences, and because of that is able to produce more. So I think what you're saying totally makes sense to me. Like you're trying to, well, at least I'm going to reflect back what I understood.
Hmm.
You're trying to create something that was missing for you growing up, and you're trying to get back to that. And I think that makes sense
Yeah,
because there are so many people, I guess, or even just subcultures of things that aren't represented in mainstream storytelling
totally.
that
Yeah.
I think is it's totally valuable to bring those stories to light. And I think that's a really great mission that you kind of just
Yeah.
explained. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think like part of it is because for me also like I'm really interested in teaching and really interested in like eventually I want to teach animation and everything. What to me I've always like I've had a few experiences with that in the past as well, teaching and everything. And a lot of my time, a lot of the approach that I take is like, how can I help someone communicate their own emotional reality or communicate their own lived experience rather than trying to fit them into the mold of what's already come before, if that
Right.
makes sense. And that's been my approach to my own work as well, like where I'm thinking about like how can I like so, yeah. Yeah, we were talking. Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you really want to try to prove yourself. So one way
Hmm.
of proving yourself would be to take the traditional formulaic approach, which isn't wrong in a sense, like
Hmm.
and create like very beautiful animation that like would be respected at like Pixar
Hmm.
level, Disney level, or something like that.
Yeah.
So what is the way that you want to prove yourself? Because you're going against that. So
Yeah.
how what would you receive that would tell you that you've proved yourself?
Well, I mean, okay, so I think you brought up Ascensia before. That was kind of the biggest thing for me where I'm like taking everything that I do and then heightening it to really like, heightening it to this place where it's like a really like as far like as like an emotionally impactful film that like makes you cry or whatever, even though it doesn't fall into the right structure, it doesn't fall into the right like the correct way of doing things, I guess. So and like also I had like oh god, sorry, I'm like what was I saying? Oh my god.
What would you receive to prove yourself that would
Oh
tell you?
yeah. I think I have proved myself actually. I think I know this because of the response to my work so far, which has been the response that I was going for. So like my films like Goodbye Forever Party and Essentia have both done really well like critically and with just like random people on the internet. And like while it hasn't like gone like viral per se, it's like done pretty well like in views and everything. And like especially for what it is, which is just like a long form random animation that you find on the internet. Like
Yeah,
I think it's done
Wasteland
pretty
is like
well.
an hour and a half.
Yeah, and it like it has like 30,000 views or whatever, which like I think is pretty good, especially for just how random it is, like and how hard it is to kind of follow at some points. Like essentially, I think is at like 45K right now, and I think Goodbye for a Party is at 45K, and I think Ascensia is at
Ascensio's at
40K.
40K.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just went on your YouTube channel right now.
yeah. Like yeah, that isn't like a million views. It's not like Has Been Hotel levels or whatever, but it's like it's also like I'm like pretty relatively new to releasing stuff and everything, and it's been like it's kind of and I have like a big audience now from posting random shit that's like varying in length and like and like the release date's been like all over the place or whatever. So it's like and I have like a pretty big following from that now, which I feel pretty good about. Like even though I guess like my whole approach has been really like all over the place, but I ended up doing okay. So I'm like, I feel pretty good.
Right. Yeah. Well, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I found you because I think it was on Instagram or YouTube or something, but I just as soon as I saw your style, I was completely like blown away. I've never seen anything so creative, and you can just tell there's so much hard work in it. And like me already doing stop motion and seeing a stop motion film with paper cutouts, like you animate in 2D, then you cut out each part of the 2D animation and then film it in stop motion
Yeah.
on like multi-plane glass with like other elements. It's just insane to me. Like you have mastered like so many different mediums of animation. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, it really resonated with me from that style. So that's like what attracted to me to it. And then when I actually watched your work, I was like, dang, this is like this is really cool.
Thank you.
So now that you've quote unquote proven yourself, what are you going to make next, or what are you trying to do now?
So my plan right now, okay, so I've been working at the BuzzFeed Animation Studio for the past few months, and I've made enough money now where I'm like, I feel like I can survive on my own. Like I saved enough money from just working there. And now what my plan is, because I've already been working on another film, like another 45-minute film called Barbara Westchester, which I'm really excited about. I'm really happy with how it's going right now, but I haven't had a lot of time to work on it because I've been having like a full-time job and everything. But I think now that I have enough money where I can like I can sustain myself for a few months at least without like needing a job. like my plan right now is I'm gonna take December and January and February off from like having a job, and I'm gonna focus more on like growing my audience online, I guess. So like at BuzzFeed, I've been like learning a lot about like how do you like grow audiences, and how do you like pin, like how all that stuff, like how do you like get people to click on something or whatever. And my thought that I had also was like I've gained an audience over time just from like posting irregular and everything. So my plan is like I'm gonna start making stuff that's like I can work really fast. Is another thing about me. I work really fast. So my plan is like but the problem I work really fast, but I'm making like really long stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
So like, my plan is like to work really fast and hard on a bunch of really small stuff and start putting that out more frequently. And then also start trying to like grow my Patreon and grow like my YouTube monetization and everything, so I can like sustain myself on that money, I guess. And then also be working on Barber as much as I can, and like working on my own films as much as I want, because I've been realizing that like I really hate working in a studio and I just want to be working on my own stuff really badly. So this is my my random plan to like try and do that. And if it doesn't work in 3 months or whatever, then I'll just try and find a job, and that'll be that.
That's fine. And that sounds terrifying to me, like to like go that route. But I think that's really cool. Also, like you got to take risks, and you're already developing a pathway. So that sounds like a natural next step for it, from my perspective, for you. So okay, so I'm still curious about when you were younger and you wanted to get into animation. Did you ever and did you want to always do kind of what you're doing now, or did you reach a point of that frustration where you talked about you were sick of like the traditional formulaic animation? Was there a turning point for you that you've now this new path?
So so I was like really just into cartoons when I was a kid, and I would just always draw and everything. It was like very basic. It was like, I was always drawing when I was a kid, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then when I was 10, I started doing like Lego animations, and I started like going really hard on them, like brick films and everything, like just stop motion Lego movies. And I like started going really hard on them, and like really, because I was homeschooled for like a long time. I was homeschooled.
Aren't you immortalized in the brick film like street wiki?
I have a page in the brickfilms.com wiki or something. It says that I was a pioneer in cartoony Lego animation or something crazy like that. Like, credits me for a lot of stuff. Anyway, I went really hard on Lego animations for a few years, and that was kind of how I developed my baseline understanding of animation and everything. And then when I was like 13ish, I was like, I really wanted to like start doing 2D, because that was kind of what I wanted to do all along, and I was trying to kind of get the feeling of a cartoon but in Legos. And then so I started like applying everything I had learned in Lego animation to drawings and drawing animation. I was researching a lot about how animation for 2D works and everything. And I like focused really hard on it and everything, and I got pretty good at that too. I got pretty good at like both as far as like animation went. My drawings weren't that good, but I was good at like like the motion and everything. And then I think so I made a bunch of shorts that were like 2D and everything. Like when I was 13 to 16, I made a bunch of them for like read classes I was in, and I got pretty good at it. And then like I got accepted into this like high school program at CalArts, where my teachers were like Lori Damiano, who she's amazing, and then and then like Melissa Bauman, and like a bunch of other just amazing people who like kind of like really cracked open my brain. Like, you know, like they're all very like independent experimental animation people, and really like opened my eyes to like all the different avenues of different like ways of expression and different avenues of like animation and everything. And like I like got super like obsessed with it. And I was like, and like I made a 2D short while I was there, and then I like got, you know, and I wasn't like satisfied with it, so I like made a bunch of more stuff, and then after I went to that program, and then applied again to go back. And then when I went back, I did this like crazy film that was like, I guess like 2D drawings that were like standing up in a 3D space, stop motion, like in a stop motion 3D space. That really informed what I'm doing now, because I've always, from then on, have been like, I really like this like feeling of like, of 2D and 3D space and everything, or like having shadows, or having like actual physical elements in the drawings and everything.
Why do you like that over other mediums? Like, do you think there are stories you can tell in that specifically, or vibes you can give off, or emotions?
I definitely like the way it looks a lot. I like it a lot more than how like general 2D looks. I think also it just is how my brain works. I think like it like really reflects like, because when I'm drawing, I'm thinking like about the 3D space in a way that's kind of like abstracted, and then I kind of it's like a whole weird little thing. But most of the reason why I've decided to do it so much is because like I just really like the way it looks a lot.
Nice.
I think it just looks cool.
Tell me about your process, aka sitting on your bed and cutting out paper for hours. What goes into making this super unique, interesting looking style?
So let me think.
Like, do you start at the storyboarding phase?
Oh yeah, okay. So I like board everything digitally usually. Like I go into Photoshop and I just like spend a long time boarding, and then I get the animatic done and everything. I really like to like plan out everything before I do it. Which like doesn't like seem like that when you watch my work, but it's like really planned out, and it's really like I really try to like figure out what I'm doing before I start animating. And after that I do some layout drawings. So basically with that, I just like kind of figure out what's the background gonna look like, what's the front, what the character, where the character's gonna go and everything, and like just generally what the drawings are gonna look like. And I do one of those for every shot, and then I animate straight ahead. Yeah, like on Ascensia, I was animating everything straight ahead, pencil drawings, and then we would color it with gouache and watercolor. So it's like watered down gouache, so it's like it doesn't like destroy the drawings or anything. And then we cut it out and keep it registered to the peg bar generally, or we just cut it out all the way. And then
who's we?
On Ascensia I had like 5 or 6 assistants
What?
helping me with color and cutting and everything.
How did you entice 5 or 6 people to gouache for hours and cut out for hours?
So they're all my friends, first of all. They're all like
friends.
They're all my friends. And then I also got them school credits, because while I was at school, I would get them like 3 credits each, which was like a whole class for the whole semester. through like kind of like figuring out like in the school system, I like figured out like I could get them 3 credits to help me all semester working on the film and everything. So we would have like weekly meetings where we would like just color and everything. Yeah, that was like a way I figured out how to do it.
Gotcha.
Which was
So
like very
back to the process. You're gouaching, you're cutting.
yeah, gouaching and cutting and everything, and then put it into little folders, and then I take it to the multiplane room where I, me or my friend Benny, who was another one of my assistants, Benny would help me with shooting and everything. But we would put it on the multiplane. We put the background on one sheet of glass, and then like the characters on another sheet, and like the foreground elements on another sheet of glass, and then like there's like the down shooter that just shoots at everything, shoots it all. Like yeah, that's the gist of it.
So how many pieces of paper did you use for the final film of Ascensia, which is 45 minutes?
I think the average length of the shots were probably like 30 frames. Let me think. So, but a lot of it was boiling. A lot of it was like just like dynamic holds.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess like let's say like okay. Let me think. This is hard. It is really hard because there's so many shots.
Math question.
There's like about 530 shots I think in Ascensia.
530 shots times
let's say
frames a shot.
Okay, let's say like the average is 30.
That's 16,000 pages of paper. 15,900. Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Oh my goodness. Do you have like physio for your hands or something after all that?
My hands are strong as fuck. That's the thing about me. Look at how strong my hands are.
Oh wow, those are strong hands.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's crazy. And I love it also because there's so many like tactile functions in this process. It sounds like fun. Like you're just doing crafts all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm able to do everything. Is that it is kind of fun in a way. And I like animating and I try to make everything about it like the most fun that it can be for myself. So I don't like, and also like the process of like having people help me is also fun. And like we make it really social and really like nice. So it's like not like hard.
That sounds really cool. It sounds like a really fun project versus like head down, animate as fast as you can, grueling. Yeah. It's like let's have a fun party all the time. And
Exactly. Yeah, and I think and then we would a lot of time while we were working on Ascensia, I would like we would all take breaks sometimes, and we'd make like a film. We would make like a film in like a few hours just through like sheer willpower and just like so we have like a bunch of examples of this. But they're all like just like we would like generate an idea super fast just to like improv exercises, and then like make a film just like just like board it really fast, shoot like animate it really fast. There's like a few different ways we did it. The one was like we would all of us would like collaborate on all of it. Like we would do one person would draw one frame and then the person would draw the next frame. We'd like turn it in a circle kind of.
Oh my
gosh. I draw one frame, turn it around. We'd have like on one like the animation disc, so we like turn it around. The other person would draw the next frame. Turn around again. Person would draw the next frame. So we just like go in a circle. Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Did you ever get any pressure to go with the grain instead of against the grain with your films?
So weirdly, yeah, because I was in experimental animation at CalArts, which has a reputation for being kind of crazy, but I would get a lot of like hesitation, a lot of like people telling me not to do stuff or whatever, which I guess makes sense. Like when you have a student making like a 45-minute film, you're gonna like discourage it, obviously. But
yeah, like at Sheridan, we have to make a 1-minute film.
Yeah. Yeah. So and like I guess and like no one had ever done that. No one had ever made like a 45-minute film before. That was like as like work intensive as what I was doing. So yeah, it was like kind of met with like a lot of like discouragement and everything. But I guess that makes sense. I used to be really mad about it. I think I've gotten less mad about it now because I like have like rationalized it. But yeah, like it made me mad in the moment.
Yeah, I feel that.
And it like fueled my rage a little bit. You know what I mean?
So for somebody who hasn't seen Ascensia, just because that's your latest film, can you give like an overview of what it's about?
Yeah, it's about wow. It's about like basically.
I had to give an overview to somebody the other day when I was talking about it, so I could
Well,
give an
because like for
overview,
me,
but I want to hear from you.
my problem is that when I think about it, I think about like all the like weird little details about it. So like like when you ask me to like summarize it, my first thought is like the like character moments that are like really like irrelevant to the plot. So like I like have to like make it more specific. It's about like a cult leader and her cult disciples, and they do or don't ascend. I don't.
What?
um, well, okay, because the whole idea is that you don't know if they actually ascend to the next level or whatever. I don't know. Okay, so it's about. This is hard for me to figure out. Okay, it's about Ascensia, who gets visited by aliens who ask her to collect all their babies. So then she does it, but she isn't happy about it.
What? I mean, I watched it and I get that, but
it's
I feel like there's
about
a much more simple way to explain the film.
it's about it's about Celise, who joins a cult,
Here
and
we
the
go.
cult is really it makes her happy, but then it then stuff happens and it's not happy anymore.
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh,
know.
it's about this girl who like can't fit in her life. Like her
Yeah,
job sucks, her roommates suck, nobody likes her, she doesn't have friends.
yeah,
She finds this cult that like becomes her family, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
she's
yeah.
very happy. And then she wonders if the cult was it really in it for her happiness and familyness in the end, or if they just were in it for the crazy megalomaniac egotisticals leader of the cult's delusion.
Yeah,
And then you find out in the end that it could be both. I don't know.
yeah.
But
That's a
it's
good example. That's a good way to do
well, I
it.
didn't want to give away the ending because I think the ending is a very big part of the
Well, the
whole
ending
build.
is the only important part of the movie. So
Yeah. So watch it.
yeah, watch it cuz the only
So
reason you should watch it is the ending.
yeah. And there's some really beautiful moments in there. There's some really great songs. Like I was
Oh
surprised to
yeah.
suddenly go into a song and be like, this was so cute. You're sitting on a hill and
Yeah.
just like overlooking the city. Um,
Yeah.
but, so you mentioned before that you want to create kind of emotional stories. What is the emotional story that you were trying to create with this film?
Um
And why did you make it in the first place?
let me okay. Let me think. So so it started because I was in a class called Direction Utopia, and we were learning a lot about different attempts at having like a utopia or whatever.
Hmm.
So in like the US especially, like a bunch of like in the 70s, like a bunch of different people were trying to like create communes and everything and like try to live in a way that was like really like like not influenced by the outside world and everything. Which led me down a rabbit hole where I eventually kind of came across Heaven's Gate, which is an infamous cult from
Oh yeah.
San Diego. That all they in the 90s they all killed themselves to basically they were trying to ascend to the Haley Bopp comet that was at the time like going that was flying overhead because they believed that their old leader had died and ascended to it, so they were trying to follow her basically, or that she was there waiting for them. It was the whole thing. So then I
Yeah.
found
They all created like these really intense, well, not intense, but like these goodbye videos for their
yeah,
funeral.
yeah, yeah. So I saw those, and I saw their initiation video. I saw their initiation video and their goodbye video, and both of those were really like um, intense for me because I have a lot of like background in religion and everything, and I have this part of my brain that kind of like just starts believing stuff. So like I'm very easily gaslit, if that makes sense. Like so I was watching the initiation video and I started to believe it, and I started to like kind of, it was hard for me to, you know, like to watch it because it was so real for me. And I you know, and I like had to keep distancing myself. No, this isn't real. They all killed themselves, like whatever. But I made me realize that if I were in that situation, I might have joined the cult as well, and that kind of like really made me go crazy. And I like started I started doing more research and everything. And I was also thinking about the goodbye video they did, where they all sit in front of the camera, talk about how they feel about quote unquote ascending. And you know, and they all felt like normal people. They all felt like they were like logically doing it. They had like all their reasons and everything. And it made me just really like feel, I don't know, like I just like I wanted to make a movie about it really badly. And then I just started thinking about, how do you make a film about like empathizing with these people? How do you like, because I also like scrolled down to the YouTube comments and they're all like, these people are idiots. These people suck. What's wrong with them? They're so stupid. And I was like, oh, what? No. And then, and then I made a movie about it.
Yeah, and I really that comes across in the movie as well, because you create a lot of characters that in the cult like may or may not fit into a regular society per se.
Yeah.
And like the main character like connects with them all in a different way, and it's really endearing.
Thank you.
So I think this is a good time to ask a question that I received when somebody found out I was interviewing you. And how has religion affected your art? And also, I guess the second part is, how does CalArts react to this?
So okay, let me try it. Okay. So yeah, there's a bit like, especially in my Wasteland series, there's like a really like big reoccurring theme of like religion and like personal experiences with God and everything, and different ways of it and whatever. Ascensia is like the finale of Wasteland, so there's like that kind of, everything kind of comes to all the themes that are established in the rest of the Wasteland series are kind of brought to a head in Ascensia. And the other ones are all kind of like scattered, I guess. But I think Ascensia is the most like concretely about religion, because it obviously has to be, because it's about a cult. But like, but basically, I think for me, my experience has been like, because I grew up in a very like rigidly, not rigidly in like the traditional way, but like a very like religious household that was very strict and very like I got like, it's kind of hard to explain, because it isn't the way that like a lot of really strict religious families are, because it was a lot more casual. It was like, but it was like very, it was very culty in a weird way. Like it was like the kind of Christianity that it followed was very kind of like it was very culty. It was very like the way that it worked was very like, there was a lot of like spiritual, very like training me to see in the spirit kind of thing, speak in tongues, like be like kind of like, and like kind of have like, I would like visit heaven or whatever. It was like a lot of like very very intense stuff. So I guess for me, I got really kind of accustomed to it, if that makes sense, and I got kind of accustomed to the whole like just believing and stuff and like whatever. And like after a while I started to like resent God more, and I started to like or like, you know, and I eventually stopped believing in him and whatever. And I like, for me, a lot of what I think about my work is kind of like God, like the idea that God is real but he sucks or something, or like I don't know, like thinking about like how kind of like just ways of like kind of reaching catharsis for myself, if that makes sense. So like sorting through all my different feelings about it and like thinking about like my different experiences and whatever. Yeah. And I think like most of my work actually, like I think like my Frederator pilot is also has like a weird God element. My Stilton series has a weird God element to it. There's like I think most of everything I've done kind of like I'm just kind of always thinking about it. So it kind of just bleeds into everything I do.
So well, I do want to talk about the pilot you made for Frederator as well, but would you say when you're creating a film, it sounds more like you're thinking about elements that are inside of you rather than what you think an audience would want, I guess.
I think it's kind of like how do I get these things out in a way that like is narrative and interesting. You know?
I think the most amazing part of that, and at least from what I've experienced with my own art, is when I take something that's deeply personal inside of me and put it out there and it resonates with other people without any expectation at all. And that just, it feels good. It feels amazing.
Yeah. Like I made a film Goodbye Forever Party, which is also a part of Ascensia.
Yes.
Which for me was like really heavily specific to things that I experienced, like especially with mental health and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it, like to my surprise, it like kind of like attracted a lot of people who have similar experiences and everything. So it's like it is for a specific kind of person. It's just not for like like the larger, kind of audience, But well, there is people who experience it and like have and like their lives have been dictated by it also. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that reflects what you were saying earlier against, being rebellious and going against the grain, but also creating stuff that isn't out there and can resonate with people in a way that mainstream stuff can't.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, going forward, you're working on this new Barber film, and you're working on your Patreon. What is self-sustaining to look like to you? Is it to be able to just create films going forward, or do you want to have like a feature film in theaters, or do you want to, have all the fame and fortune of like Disney, a studio, like whole studio set up and everything? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Short term, it's like being able to pay my rent and like eat food and stuff.
Pizza Hut.
So that's like the main goal that I'm trying to achieve first, is like be able to be just like an independent artist who like just works on my own stuff and puts it out there and people watch it. I think what's kind of crazy right now too is like the kind of like landscape we're in, where it's like I could just have a career where I post stuff to YouTube and have a studio that posts stuff to YouTube and everything. Because I was thinking about that with like BuzzFeed, for instance, because like that's where I've been working for a while now, and it's like I go like, I don't know, like it's a whole company kind of dedicated to just putting stuff online and like just like like getting people to look at stuff, and like made me realize that I could probably eventually just do something like that where I like post all my films online and it's like sustainable. But like also like I think that's the short-term goal again, is to like be able to do like my own films and post them online and get revenue from it or whatever. Because like it's just what I want to be doing regardless of of anything. So I feel like I might as well just shoot for that. But like eventually I do want to have my own studio. I would like to have a studio where I could like help other people like tell their own stories and everything, and like help my friends like direct stuff and whatever. Like I don't know, like I think that's like the main. I want to start a studio eventually is my other goal, and I feel like eventually it'd be cool to like have stuff in theaters, but also it's like I have no idea what the landscape's gonna look like in a few years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I'll play it by ear a little bit, I think.
Do you think to have a full studio you would need to change your style to be a little bit more formulaic and mainstream?
I don't think that much, actually. I think maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like I think that because I think it maybe just be like taking out the like super experimental aspects of it, which I'm kind of doing with like Barber, where I'm like thinking about just like how to make things a little more like easy to follow visually, I guess. Because like with Ascensia, I was doing a lot of like stuff to kind of like prove a point. So like I would have like I don't know, like a lot of my visual decisions were like very based in like trying to prove a point about narrative and stuff. But I think with Barber, I'm just kind of like having it be more straightforward in how it's presented and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I have to like change anything too extremely though. I think it's just like being like a little more polished, you know?
That's fine. So tell me the story of how you got Frederator to make a pilot for Rachel and her grandfather pilot.
So I was 18 years old. I had just graduated high school, and I see that they have like little like they put out like a call for pitches for Go cartoons.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to make a cartoon. I want to go do that. So my idea at the time was like, I'm just gonna practice pitching with them, and I'm just gonna see what happens if I just go in and do it. So I made my board and I like practiced it to a bunch of people and everything, and then I went in, and I met Eric Coman and Kelsey Kalate.
Wait, so you sent it in first, and then they got back to you, and they're like, "Come on in."
No, I just went in.
So you just drove down, and you were like,
"Oh no!" I said like, "Oh, I have a pitch. Can I come and give it to you guys?" And then I went down. It wasn't like I just walked in random. I had like an appointment. So I walked in and I pitched it, and I'm like this dumbass little baby 18-year-old who has no idea what they're doing, and I just pitch it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we like this." And I'm like, "Huh?" And they're like, "Yeah, we like, let's make it," basically. So then,
oh my gosh,
yeah, and then I started CalArts and I started Rachel at the exact same time, which was really crazy. Yeah.
When you were at CalArts, was everybody like, "Oh my gosh, how amazing are you? Like you have this pilot being developed already?"
Kinda, but it was like more annoying than that.
Oh no.
It was like more like trying to act like they're too cool for it or something.
Oh.
You know what I mean? That was my first year there. It was like kind of like people would either be trying to get on my good side or whatever, or they'd be trying to like act like they're above it, or like that's
middle of Survivor episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's incredible. Do you think it's really, like, from your experience, it sounds super easy. You walk in, you go a pitch that you don't even really think is going to go anywhere, and they immediately make a pilot for it and shop it around. Like, do you think that experience is typical with Frederator? Like,
I don't know. I think they pass on a lot of stuff, but they also, I don't know, because like they were kind of going for like all people who didn't have a lot of experience the time that I went. So like a lot of the pilots that were coming out were people who had never done anything before. Like, I think you talked to Elise Castro, right?
Yes.
She like had never had any experience in animation and like was like living in, I think, New Zealand or Australia, and was just like a taxidermist. She didn't just
He's a tattoo artist and a high school teacher.
Yeah. Like, I think she does like taxidermy on the side or something. But like, yeah, like it was a lot of people like that who were like right out of school, or like they had never done anything like in animation before. Or there's like a father-daughter team who like, I think one of them works in illustration, the other one I don't think had any experience in animation as far as I'm aware. It was like a lot like that kind of people. I don't like.
I also had Fred Seibert on this chat, and he said a big part of the pitch is just really kind of believing in the person that is pitching as well. Like, it could be the best idea in the world, but like if you're not somebody that you think they can work with, then they're gonna pass. Versus like they said, even, you know, if it's not the best pitch in the world, but they really think you're a great person to work with, they'll pick you up.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, for sure.
So what was your involvement on creating the pilot? Like, you wrote, directed, did you storyboard? When I watched the pilot for Rachel and her grandfather, by the way, if you're listening, you should. It's really funny. It's really cool. And it's kind of a little different than other stuff you've seen. Like, they teleport through like trash cans? No, they're collecting trash. They're
trash can robots that they're setting up because they're trying to like create a surveillance state. But they're trying to create a DIY surveillance state that no one, you know, so
they like live on this little world where you can like get around in like tubes. It's really cool.
That's for them only. They can only travel in tubes.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, so look, there's some lore to this, all right? Anyway, so
Right. So what was, so when I watched that, how much of Jonni is in that versus other writers, other people putting their input in?
So it was like I directed, wrote, storyboarded, and like did most of the animatic. I directed the animation. So it's mostly like me directing people. So I had my friend Kylan Jang do the background designs, but those were all based on my own like sketches and everything, and my own like little like I don't know what the word is, like when you show like I don't know whatever. I would like do sketches for them, and then I had someone doing color. It was Mira Crowell, who was amazing. She was doing all the color for it. And then a few of the props were designed by Jojo Baptista. But I did most of the. I kind of like went back and did a lot of them though.
Okay.
And then what else? There was like, oh, and then I worked with an animation studio overseas called Digital Animation Studios. And I like gave them a lot of direction, and I like made the boards like kind of essentially keyframes for the animation, which is why it's like kind of crazily animated, is because I was like I was like doing all the boards and I was like making it really specific. So I think like it was really honestly like, and then I did the voice for the president and the voice for the tiny scientist.
Yeah.
So there's like it's kind of and I was like directing the voices also as far as I could. I had like a voice director with me, but it was like I ended up kind of just doing the direction myself. And like yeah, it was kind of like mostly just me doing like me or directing other people.
So it sounds, so when I watched the pilot, that's basically an output of what's inside your brain, basically.
A little bit, yeah. I think the story is like 18-year-old me. Like I think it would be a lot better if I did it now, but like
well, I mean that's fair if you've gone through school, you've made more films. But yeah. I still think that's incredible. How long did it take to put together the pilot from you pitching it to it going on YouTube and getting
like 2 years.
Oh wow, okay, that's
so
like actually quick.
It was like also I was balancing school with it and everything, and I made like Goodbye Forever Party and my first year film.
Oh my gosh! So I was made 2 feature-length films and like get out of here.
Well, I made a 20-minute film and a 5-minute film and a bunch of smaller ones kind of scattered. So
yeah. Okay, so where is
Goodbye Forever Party? It went to Slam Dance. So what can I say?
So I just went to the YouTube right now for Cartoon Hangover, where it's sitting and like the top comment is, God, please, I don't want to live in a world without another episode of Rachel and her grandfather. Please, God, please. I'll even put a trash can in my room. So, okay, so in that light, where, if you can share, where does it stand right now?
I'm like not sure. I don't know. I think we're like developing a pitch Bible for it, and then we'll probably bring it around some places. I think like right now I feel like I want to get some more money before I do that.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about stuff. I'm like figuring out my whole plan right now. So yeah, we're like I've like developed a lot for it. It's like kind of like I've written a lot of stuff for it. I like have like pretty much all the episodes figured out as far as like their stories. I have everything. I have like all the characters figured out. I have like a bunch of bios. I have like pretty much like I just
done the pitch Bible.
Huh?
Sounds like you're pretty much done the pitch Bible.
Yeah, it's just kind of like the little details now, I guess.
So say you get this picked up by like, I don't know, Cartoon Network or something. What would you want to be involved in the project? Do you want to be the showrunner?
Yeah, I feel like I would want to be writing it and like directing it and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. I feel like showrunners, they have like a really stressful job though.
Yeah.
And like for me, I just like care about the art part of it. I don't really care about the rest.
But it sounds like you're kind of doing the rest anyways for the films you're working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like what I mean by the rest, I mean like the rest of the showrunner things that they have to do, where it's like they have to be like going to all these meetings and whatever. and like like marketing and all that whatever, and like they have to like say everything. I don't know. It sounds like a lot.
Yeah, fair. Well, I think that's really cool. So I guess you've kind of, one question I still have is like, you want the studio. maybe I already asked this question. Maybe I'll just cut this part out. I was gonna
There's gonna be
ask.
a lot of editing for this. That's all I'll say.
That's fine. I was gonna ask you but more to dig deeper on the sustainability thing, because I think it's really cool that you're becoming you've decided to become an independent artist. But I think you already answered that. But So I mean, I kind of asked everything that I wanted to ask about. I'm just wondering, is there anything else that you wanted to share at this point?
Not that I can think of. Yeah, not really.
So I guess my last question is, for other people who are maybe in art school or feeling pressure to, go with the grain, what would you say to those people now that you've kind of gone through all the pressure, you've created some really cool stuff, you've accomplished some things? What would you say to those people to give them a little bit of boost in confidence of believing in themselves?
While you're in school, do whatever you want. They can't actually stop you from doing what you want to do. They'll just say stuff and they can fail you. But the thing is okay, the thing that's more important is the work that you want to make. And if you feel really like you want to make it, just do it, because you have the resources while you're in school to do it. You have the time, you're paying for the time to do it, you're paying for the time and the resources. Okay. And as long as you pass your classes, you can go by the skin of your teeth or whatever, but it's know that the work that you're making is the most important thing about your schooling. Your grades don't really matter that much. It's especially if you're in animation school, that's kind of if you're in animation school, your grades don't really matter. You're you should just be making work that you feel confident about and making the work that you want to make. Because as soon as you get out, it's then you have to conform to what everyone wants you to do, so it's I think you should just take the time while you're in school to do whatever work you want to make and be really work as hard as you can on it. It's I don't know, I feel if I'd listened to any of my teachers about if I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing or whatever, I would have not made the stuff that I wanted to make. So it's I think yeah.
No, I think that's really important. I think there's a lot of pressure to do what you think is required of you, and in school there are very clear cut requirements of what you should do. To try to get those grades and stuff. Versus what you just said is school is at your disposal to have opportunities to create the things that you want to create. And I think a lot of people that I've come across in my career, it's I'll create that thing that I want to when I get the chance to do it. And then a whole decade passes and you never get the chance. So I think school is a really unique bubble to, you said you have the resources for sure. You have the studios, you have all the really expensive software. You have really cool people around you that are very creative. You have the profs for mentorship and feedback, all this stuff. Do the thing that you want to create and see through it and do it the best you can. So
totally.
I definitely think you wouldn't have created what you have if you had done gone the other route. That's totally cool.
Yeah. Totally.
Is there anything else you'd like to share about anything that you've worked on or anything at all?
I think I don't have anything right now. I think I'm
well, then we can just wrap it up. That's fine.
Cool. I'm sorry. I've been out of it.
I'm pressuring you to come up with more wisdom on the spot. No, I really enjoyed the chat, especially the beginning part where we chatted about kind of going against the grain and what that means. Because growing up, stop motion, for instance, and also the classic formula of hero, whatever, didn't really fit in my world view that was in my head. So I'm really happy we talked about that, because sometimes I try to create things that I don't think are represented in mainstream animation either.
Totally. Yeah. It's
I feel I just said the most vague thing in the world.
No, it makes sense. I agree. I wish I was more awake for this. I feel I feel really stupid.
All right,
if you ever want to redo this, I'd be down.
No, I'm not redoing this. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much. I feel very honored. I was not ready at all.
That's fine. If you're listening and you'd like to follow Jonni or get in touch with her or check out all her super cool films, you can do so by checking out her Instagram or YouTube channel. She goes by @Jonni Phillips pretty much anywhere. So I'll include the links to those in the description of this podcast. And that is all for now. Thank you for listening. Okay, bye.